What would you do if your fiancé and your best friend betrayed you at the same time? I didn't break down or beg for answers. Instead, I set things in motion for a payoff that left a room full of guests speechless. And you won't believe who ended up walking away with nothing. It all started with a simple invitation. By the time they stepped into my so-called wedding, everyone was about to witness a truth that would change everything. Before any of that could happen, though, my world had to fall apart first. Trust can disappear in an instant. I was engaged to someone I thought understood every part of me. Someone who knew my favorite coffee order, who could turn an ordinary day into something I'd remember. My best friend was just as important, woven into my life through years of shared secrets and late-night talks. Together, they were the people I leaned on most. I never imagined they'd be the ones to pull the rug out from under me. The first clues were so subtle I almost missed them. My fiancé started spending more time glued to his phone, laughing at messages he wouldn't explain. When I asked, he'd say it was just a work meme. At the same time, my best friend grew distant, her answers short and her presence fading. I tried to brush off the changes, telling myself everyone gets busy, but the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Then came the night that changed everything. I glanced at my fiancé's phone as I walked past, and a message from my best friend flashed on the screen. "I miss you so much. Can't wait till we're alone again." He snatched the phone away before I could react, his face turning pale. That single moment hit harder than any argument or accusation. My mind raced as I tried to piece together every odd moment. Their inside jokes, her strange questions about whether he was really ready for marriage, the way they'd both fall silent when I entered the room. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started noticing how often she'd show up when he was around, even when it didn't make sense for her to be there. He'd mention plans that never seemed to include me, and she'd throw out comments that sounded innocent until I replayed them in my head. The evidence was everywhere once I stopped looking away. The final proof landed in my lap one night when he left his laptop open. Their chat history was right there, line after line of messages. They joked about leaving me, called me clueless, and debated when would be the right time to tell me. Reading their words, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way they talked about me, as if I were nothing more than an obstacle in their way. I took screenshots of everything, needing something solid to hold on to. Part of me still wanted to believe there was another explanation, but the truth was right in front of me. The next morning, I confronted him with the evidence. He tried to lie at first, stumbling through excuses, but he didn't get far. The silence that followed told me more than any confession could. I didn't let myself cry. I packed a bag and left, not giving him the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. Alone in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, I tried to steady my breathing. The pain was sharp and immediate, but underneath it, something else began to settle, a sense that I needed to do something more than just walk away. That's when the idea started to form. I wasn't sure what it would look like yet, but I knew I wasn't going to let their betrayal define the end of my story. Heartbreak hit hard and fast. After the confrontation, I felt everything at once, anger, grief, and a sharp sense of humiliation that stuck with me for days. I replayed every conversation, every memory, now colored by what I knew. But as the shock faded, something steadier took its place. I wasn't about to let them have the last word. That's when the idea took hold. It started as a half-formed thought, almost a joke. What if I staged a wedding, invited them both, and let the truth come out in front of everyone? The more I considered it, the more it made sense. Not just a stunt, but a way to reclaim the narrative. I wanted them to feel exposed, to see what it was like to have the ground pulled out from under them with an audience watching. It wasn't about pettiness. It was about taking back control. Planning the fake wedding became my focus. I started with the invitations, choosing thick, cream-colored cardstock and a formal font that looked just right. I left his name off completely. For her, I made sure the message sounded personal, like I was extending an olive branch. "Please join me on my special day. It wouldn't be the same without you." She responded almost immediately, gushing about how honored she felt. I could almost see her imagining herself as my closest confidant, never suspecting what was actually coming. I picked a venue just outside the city, a place with neat gardens and a small banquet room that felt far more expensive than anything I'd ever planned before. I kept the guest list tight, inviting only the people who mattered or who needed to be there for the reveal. A few close friends were in on the plan and helped with the details. The decorations were simple, just enough to sell the illusion. I ordered flowers, coordinated the schedule, and made sure every piece fit together. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of calm. Each step was a reminder that I was steering the story now. I read about how revenge can sometimes offer a sense of control after betrayal, especially when the wrong person feels powerless. That was what this was for me, a way to stand up again, not just to them, but to myself. I wasn't looking for a dramatic confrontation or a screaming match. I wanted the truth to do the work. As the day approached, I kept things quiet. Only a handful of people knew what was really happening. When the RSVPs came back, both my ex-fiancé and my best friend said they'd be there. They probably thought they were walking into another celebration, maybe even ready to flaunt their new connection. But this time, I was the one setting the stage. The night before, I barely slept. I went over every detail in my mind, from the seating chart to the order of events. It wasn't nerves, it was anticipation. I wanted everything to go exactly as planned. I wanted them to see, in front of everyone, what they'd really done. Morning arrived, and I watched the sun rise through the window, the sky clear and bright. It felt fitting, almost ironic. The stage was set, the guests were on their way, and I was ready to see how it would all unfold. The morning moved in a blur. Downstairs, the floral arch stood at the center of the garden, the one detail I'd obsessed over for weeks. Guests settled into their seats, their conversations low and polite, the air thick with the kind of anticipation that usually comes before vows. I watched from the bridal suite, hands pressed flat against the window, scanning the arrivals. My best friend stepped out of her car first, smoothing her dress and glancing around as if searching for someone to impress. He followed, my ex-fiancé, his posture relaxed, a practiced smile on his face. They walked in together, laughing at something only they seemed to find funny. I felt a flicker of pain, but it passed quickly. Today wasn't about what I'd lost. It was about what they were about to face. Inside, the atmosphere was almost too perfect. Guests greeted each other, oblivious to the real reason they'd been invited. My assistant gave me a small nod from the doorway. I took a breath, straightened my dress, and walked out of the suite. Each step down the hallway felt heavier than the last, but I kept moving. This was the moment I'd planned for. The room quieted as I entered. All eyes turned to me, but I focused on the two faces I couldn't ignore. She sat up straighter, her smile faltering as she took in my dress. He froze, his conversation cut short. My heart stopped for a second. Then I spoke. "Thank you all for coming today," I said, voice steady. "I know you expected something different. So did I once." I paused, letting the words settle. "Today isn't about a wedding, it's about honesty." The room shifted, guests glancing at each other, a few already sensing something was off. I didn't rush. I told them what had happened, how trust can be destroyed in silence, how betrayal hides in plain sight. I described the late-night messages, the missed calls, the secrets passed between two people I thought I knew. I didn't say their names at first. I let the details do the work, watching as the realization began to dawn on the faces in the crowd. Some guests looked at her, some at him. The tension in the room grew thick. Then I gave them the truth. A photo flashed onto the screen behind me, taken from his phone. It was the two of them, unmistakable, caught in a moment that left no room for denial. A sharp gasp broke the silence. She stared at the image, her face drained of color. He looked away, jaw clenched, his hands gripping the edge of his seat. I stood there, letting the quiet stretch. The only sound was the shuffling of feet and a few whispered questions from the guests. I didn't need to say more. The evidence spoke for itself. I watched their reactions, the way their confidence crumbled in front of everyone who mattered. When it was done, I stepped away from the arch and walked toward the exit. I heard my name called once, maybe twice, but I kept moving. The weight I'd carried for weeks seemed to lift with each step. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. What mattered was that I'd finally said what needed to be said, and the truth was out in the open. Leaving that room behind, I felt something settle inside me, like I'd finally drawn a line that couldn't be crossed again. Exposing the betrayal wasn't about spectacle. It was about taking back my dignity and making it clear that my boundaries mattered. That day reminded me how important it is to respect your own worth, even when others try to diminish it. Would you dare to reclaim your story like I did? If you've ever been betrayed, share your story in the comments. Let's talk about what it means to stand up for yourself when it matters most.